Hi, I'm Diana Macedo. We have breaking news. Alec Murdaugh has just been sentenced to 40 years on federal financial crimes. The convicted murderer took a plea deal and admitted to stealing millions of dollars from his clients. But prosecutors say the FBI found 11 more victims, which could have impacted Murdaugh's sentence. ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer joins me now for more on this. Brian, what do you make of this 40-year sentence?
Yeah, so it appears that the information that the government or the prosecutors, because it's a federal courthouse, presented to the judge warranted going above the guidelines. I'm reading even that the prosecutors asked for 30 years. The judge decided that neither the 30 years the government asked for nor the 17 and a half to about 22 years guidelines was appropriate, and the judge went above and beyond that. But the good thing for Alec Murdaugh is that this federal sentence will run concurrently with the state sentence of 27 years in prison, along with that double murder sentence of life without the possibility of parole.
Brian, how unusual is it for a judge to hand down a sentence that's even more than what prosecutors are asking for?
I would say it's not too unusual. It's somewhere in between not unusual and not something that happens very often. It's somewhere in between there. So it's not the best way to answer it. I know, and I'm sorry for that. But when you look at a case like this, where someone doesn't just have financial crimes in front of them, they also have state financial crimes that they've already been convicted of. They also have a double homicide. That is very unique in of itself. And Alec Murdaugh is a very unique individual. So I'm not surprised that we have unique circumstances here where a judge says, I see the guidelines, the government's asking for more, and we have a possibility of doing more because of what the government presented in terms of what they believe to be lies on the polygraph, additional victims, a potential co-defendant, another attorney that may have helped him out, and information that he does not seem to be forthright with. This does not seem surprising when you put all of those elements together.
Brian, another interesting aspect of this case is, as you mentioned, Alec Murdaugh's already serving a life sentence without parole for the murders of his wife and his son. So how much does this sentence really matter?
It matters mainly in the sense of where will he be serving them. Many people, as we've seen, who have both state and federal sentences often opt to be sentenced and carry out that sentence in a federal detention or a federal prison system, because by and large, federal prison systems are better funded and a lot safer than the state equivalent. Also, I think a good argument for the defense here is that because of the family of the Murdaughs having a history of being like the state prosecutor, so to speak, in that area, it may be perceived as being safer for him to be in a federal penitentiary than that of a state. The same argument we see for law enforcement officers who are convicted of both state and federal. But in terms of actual time, unless Alec Murdaugh wins the appeal for the double homicide, which still seems like a bit of a Hail Mary, and unless he plans on living for the next 20, 30 years for both the state and the federal sentences, this could be ultimately a life sentence, regardless of what he does going forward.
All right. Brian, what do you think happens next in this case?
Next is Alec Murdaugh is going to continue with that attempted appeal for the double homicide. He's always been very adamant that he agrees with and that he did commit the crimes that he's being accused of when it comes to financially taking from his clients and taking from his business. And so I think there might not be as much of a push there, but he'll continue to push on those double homicide cases. If anything, there's also going to be, as I mentioned earlier, a push to have that sentence run in the federal penitentiary rather than state. And ultimately, if he does feel that the 40 years is too much because of the guideline asking for 17 and a half to 22, there may be an appeal simply to reduce the amount of time there, closer to the 27 years he's facing in state prison, for some resemblance of hope that he might see the outside world.